And she's a lecturer at university, business and economic faculty, a professional in communication, and also an advisor in Wevans Global. So please welcome Tara Wilson. And she'll be speaking to us about the cultural differences.
Yeah, I shall. I hope I have a clicker, yes?
Yes.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Hello. I think I need my slides. So I will be speaking about basically cultural awareness. Okay, that's how we're going to start. I kind of need my little PowerPoint to remind me. Sorry, I was clicking.
Yeah.
Weren't you? Sorry, thanks.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'll make sure I can do it okay. All right, nature of intercultural communication. I think basically what I'm going to be speaking about is just the background of culture and identity, okay? Just in a way, not specifically the differences, but what we need to recognize before we're able to talk about differences, okay? Sorry, I'll figure it out in a minute. It's okay. I know. Oh, and I got a pointy. Yay! I've been wanting one of these. There we go. Okay. We're going to briefly go over culture, defining culture simply, what cultural communication is, 3 dimensions of culture, cultural intelligence, you guys are going to get a lot of culture, also mindset. Then finally with communication barriers, this is where we are going to talk about, this is how differences develop, okay? And then unlearning to relearn, a communication without borders, real briefly, all right? Quite simply, Webster's dictionary. I'm not going to go over it completely. Culture is the beliefs and customs, arts of a particular society or group in a specific time, okay? We can agree on that? Yeah? Okay. All right. It can also be a way of thinking and behaving. Let me throw this in, okay? Cultures and people do behave differently based on their upbringing, all right? I knew I should have written this down and just given the speech. Okay. And I think I went too far ahead. Cultural communication now. Okay. Whereas communication is a process, okay, communication is our process between each other. Culture is basically the structure through which communication is formulated and interpreted. All right? These are good foundational things to know. Culture basically deals with the way we live, okay, the way we live on a daily basis. All right? This is a Borden model. There are 3 primary dimensions in culture. There are other models out there, like Hofstede, you guys may have heard of. But this one's a simple one. We're talking about language, physical, and psychological. All 3 are independent, and what they're basically saying, we're born into a society, no one dimension is greater or better than the other, and basically they develop together in a harmony, okay? And real quick, as we see, we have language, verbal, nonverbal, psychological, our processes, encoding, okay? We're not going heavy into this. This is just a picture, okay? Physical, our environment, our human behavior. We're from class, okay? Thinking your country rocks and is the best, okay? Well, becoming culturally aware, though, means that you have learned to shed ethnocentric thinking, all right? Because basically we need to be more of a global mindset, okay? Culture is learned through perception, okay? Basically perceptions are formed when we're born and raised, the language we learn, the people, the environment in which we live. Everything around us is affecting. Our culture is from what we see, the behaviors around us, okay? No 2 individuals view external world the same way. All of this is very important. for your foundation and our foundation, so we know why we should not be aggressive in any differences, okay? Because we all develop differently. What this leads to, once we recognize this, and we're growing up, we're here at university, right? We have to have a personal awareness that comes in. At a certain point in our life, then, we must first understand our own personal dimensions, understand who we are, before we can make any changes. All right? Cultural intelligence. Now, these are new things. You guys haven't seen this yet. All right? This is the awareness that different cultures and the structure and the behaviors are different. It's okay to be different. Okay? So, basically, it is okay to be different. But being culturally aware, culturally intelligent, shows that you recognize that other cultures do develop and have different structures, traditions, religions, right? Behaviors. You're becoming culturally intelligent. We also have mindsets. You'll hear this word. I use this a lot. Global mindset. Okay? Having a global mindset, again, is being culturally intelligent. It's allowing. Mindsets are ways that allow us to see, perceive, and reason through our own cultural awareness. Okay? This also comes into biases. Sometimes I can't see you guys' lights here. Okay? So that's why I may be looking a little strange. We have to remember that mindsets are learned when we're going up in a certain culture. Okay? We really have to recognize who we are and where we come from before we can actually establish that there is a conflict. Before we voice that there is a conflict, you have to know who you are and your own cultural biases you may have. Then we can start talking, right? Instead of barking, right? Because, of course, what this can lead into is stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination. If we're not personally aware of ourselves and our culture and that there's other cultures out there, this is where the stereotyping, generalizations, prejudice, prejudgments, discrimination, where it's basically a hate, right? Treating people lesser as if they're lesser than you, right? So this is what we want to stop, right? This is interesting. I had to throw this in. You guys haven't seen this either. Categorical thinking. This is back in 1954. This author, he wrote a paper, and he's recognizing that we're emotional, social, there's historic dimensions to prejudice and discrimination, okay? With all that said, he's recognizing here that our brains, all of us are human, all of us have brains, we have language. It's in our nature to actually categorize. He's basically saying here, you may not see it with the chairs, the human mind must think with the aid of categories. Once formed, categories are the basis of normal prejudgment, normal. Of course, we don't want to continue prejudgment into discrimination, but our brains, as he says, we cannot possibly avoid this process. Orderly living depends on it. So in part, I like this because it kind of gives us a little background of our biology and our minds, the way that we operate. Okay? Being culturally intelligent, being culturally aware, recognizing that we don't practice ethnocentric behaviors. Okay? If we can behave this way and know this, it's easier to have less differences and conflict. There is no solution. I'm not saying this is going to, solve world problems. But on individual level basis, it's going to solve a lot of personal problems, things that you may hear. So cultural barriers are everything. Physical, cultural, perceptual, motivational, emotional, linguistic, nonverbal, competition, people and their egos, right? All of this creates a communication barrier for us. And the last, unlearning to relearn a communication without borders, okay? Basically, unlearn what you've learned from growing up. Unlearn what you've learned from the media. Of course, the media is going to be the biggest topic that I hope to hear from in your guys' questions. Because remember, media can influence us in the exact same way that our families and our culture and our traditions. It may even have a more dominant effect, right? Media may even be more influential than we realize. So you need to unlearn what you learned from it. Unlearn what you learned from gossip. Unlearn what you learned from ingrained cultural biases, right? Unlearn what you've been told in general. And you guys are going to hear this maybe from your grandparents and older people in your families, right? It's when you come on with age, you start looking back and you actually start realizing you don't start learning. I'm still learning now. I know so much more now than I could ever imagine, than I did when I was 20. You actually start relearning again. You have to break these things away. So what I'm kind of saying here, without preconceived borders, please take a positive and proactive step to relearning who you are and toward learning about the people you encounter on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.